The bells that ring for no one. The bells of the Esterbrook Chapel rang at midnight for the third time that week, and my neighbor called to tell me she could hear them from her house a quarter mile away. No one lived near the chapel. No one had for 40 years. The parish that built it dissolved in the 80s. The priest who tended it died without a successor, and the building had been left to the trees and the slow patience of stone. The door was locked. The bell rope had rotted through decades ago. And yet, at midnight, 3 times in 7 days, the bells rang. I know about the chapel because I grew up in its shadow. My grandmother's house sat at the edge of the old property, and she kept a kitchen window that faced the chapel's single stone tower. I spent summers watching its silhouette against the evening sky. My grandmother had a name for the ringing. She called it the counting. She never explained what it counted. I was 12 before I asked. She set down her coffee cup and looked at me the way she sometimes did, as if she were deciding how much of a thing to give me. She said, "The bells ring for the recently dead, not all of them. Only the ones who died without anyone knowing. The ones who passed in empty rooms, on empty roads, in quiet water. The ones who went without a witness." She said the man who built the chapel had designed the bells this way, that he had traveled far to have them cast, had paid something he never spoke of to anyone. The bells were set to sound when a soul passed without anyone to mark its going. They used to ring once a month, she told me, when I was young. I asked her what it meant that they were ringing more now. She was quiet a long time. Then she said, "It means people are dying more alone." I did not go back to the chapel for 30 years. My grandmother died on a Tuesday in January, and I heard afterward that the bells had rung that night, though she had not died alone, and I told myself that the story was just a story, and that grief does strange things to what we hear in the dark. I moved away. I made a life that fit between walls I had built myself, walls that kept out old country stories and the particular chill of stone chapels in winter woods. It was the inheritance that brought me back. The house was mine now, my grandmother's house, with its kitchen window facing the tower. I had planned to sell it. I drove out to assess what needed doing, to take photographs, to make the reasonable adult decisions that estates require. I arrived in the afternoon, and by evening, I had begun to understand that leaving was not going to be simple. The window she had always kept facing the chapel. She had polished it clean, even as the rest of the house gathered dust. Even in the weeks before she died, she had kept that window clean. I cleaned the rest of the house and slept that night on the cot she kept in the back room. I woke at midnight to the bells. Not loud, never loud, but clear and deliberate, the way something speaks when it knows it will be heard regardless of volume. I counted 7 rings. In the morning, I called the County Historical Society and learned that a man had been found the day before in a ditch off Route 9, 3 miles away. He had been there for several days. No identification. No one had reported him missing. I stayed another night. The bells rang again, 4 times, just after 1 in the morning. I did not sleep. In the morning, the local news mentioned a woman found in her apartment in town. She had been dead for 2 weeks before anyone noticed. Her name was Carol. She had worked at the grocery store checkout for years, and no one had known her last name. 7 for the man in the ditch. 4 for Carol, who no one knew. I do not know how the bells know. I do not know if knowing is even the right word for what the bells do. What I know is this. I have been in my grandmother's house for 6 weeks now, and I have not put it on the market. And every night, I sit at the kitchen window she kept clean, and I watch the dark shape of the tower against the sky. When the bells ring, I count. I write down the number in a notebook I found in her kitchen drawer, already half full in her handwriting, numbers and dates going back years. She had been counting for decades. The chapel is still locked. The bell rope is still rotted. I climbed the ladder to the tower last week and stood with the old bronze bells themselves, smooth and green with age, and found no mechanism, no timer, no clever explanation. Just old metal and old silence, and the particular quality of a thing that has been doing its work for a very long time without anyone to appreciate it. I stood there a long while, and standing there, I understood what my grandmother had understood. Someone has to count. Someone has to know. Even if the counting changes nothing, even if no one ever reads the notebook, someone has to be the witness that the silent dead were owed and never received. The bells do not ring to summon help. They ring because the dead deserve to be acknowledged, even by bronze, even in the dark, even with no one listening. They ring so that the going is not entirely without record. They ring because silence, sometimes, is the cruelest thing the living can offer the dead. There are people dying alone right now, in rooms no one will enter for days, in places no one will think to look. If you have someone you haven't reached out to, call them. Tonight. Before the bells decide they have to. Thank you for listening to Storytime Scary Dark. Subscribe for new dark tales every week and share this story with someone who needs to hear it.